The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hi, welcome to episode 79. I'm kind of going rogue on this episode. I had something else planned, and I just thought this was a little timely. I always tend to see themes happening like all at once with maybe a small group of my clients are working on the same theme. And maybe it's because, I just came out with the planner that's called the follow through planner, which has to do with, your follow through in taking action to complete your intentions, which is what planning is all about. And although my planner is a great vehicle for you to kind of play out this idea of I follow through with what I said I was going to do, and I have a great reputation with myself. And this is all easier said than done. I mean, the whole idea of this is who I am and this is what I do, I always follow through is kind of pie in the sky, unicorn thinking. No one is completely 100% in their follow through. That's just the nature of the human experience, is that we oftentimes have great intentions and things just get in the way. And that's not even the point of focusing on follow through and working on follow through. Working on your follow through and doing what you said you were going to do is intimately connected with habit change. So when we have habits that we want to change, let's take the obvious example of you have a habit of overeating. Let's call it emotional overeating. You're looking to eat to feel better pretty consistently, and that's an established habit that you have. And if you want to change that, maybe you notice, like, I don't like the weight that I am and I want to lose some fat. So I've got to change this habit of emotional eating. This is what, most of my clients fall into this category. This is how we realize we want to lose weight. Well, we have to take the automatic and make it intentional. So we have to develop awareness of when you are eating to feel better rather than eating to fuel yourself because you're hungry and you need fuel. And you have to become aware of when you do that first. This is the first part of habit change, is increasing awareness of the automatic habits that are playing out. If you're not even aware of what they are, you don't have a chance in hell of changing them. So when we say we want to lose weight, what we're saying is we want to make the automatic intentional, and we have to interrupt the habitual eating patterns that are established and on auto mode, automatic pilot with our brains and our actions. We have to develop awareness of them, and then we've got to steer those choices over time slowly to doing slightly different things. So this is where we start to notice, usually in the beginning, that your ability to interrupt those habits, we tend to have trouble with it. This is why people take many times to quit smoking and maybe dozens of times to stop drinking or just change their relationship to those things. So it's a multifactorial development of the process of change, where we say, I don't like what I'm doing automatically and I want to do something else. So it's important. I know if I'm ever going to change my weight, I have to be successful in following through by not eating to feel better. And this is where your follow through and your reputation with yourself, it comes under scrutiny. And there's a lot of bemoaning that happens, which is very normal, when we're like, oh shit, like I said, I was only going to overeat 3 times this week and I overate 7 times. What the hell happened? And there's this idea, like, if I could just overeat 3 times and follow through with what I said I was going to do, I could reach my goals. But that's a surface level idea. And, a lot of everything that I do with coaching is about getting underneath those surface level discrepancies between what you're doing and what you would like to do. And we just work on changing those habits slowly and doably. So I thought I would share with you today just a little bit of a message that I shared with my clients on this topic back on April 1st. And you're listening to this later on in the future from where I am right now. And I just want to go through it with you because how you think about changing your reputation with yourself makes all the difference in your ability to successfully do that. I mean, you can kind of change your habits, dragging yourself through the mud, kicking and screaming all the way with a lot of negative talk, or you can frame this idea of changing your reputation with yourself, changing your follow through, keeping your word to yourself, and improving your reputation with yourself as like the most incredible challenge of a lifetime. So it is important when you talk about changing your habits around food. Instead of focusing on, oh, the number doesn't say what I want it to say, therefore I'm failing. Why don't you move the needle of focus over toward improving your reputation with yourself, improving your rate of follow through by becoming a much more adept person who is successful in sustainable habit change, right? Doesn't that feel interesting? Because this sandbox that we're playing in changing our habits around food is a model that the more you get good at it with your weight, changing your habits around food, the more that you can tap into this skill set and apply it with anything in your life. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's financial, habits around finances that you're not currently doing. You would like to be a better saver. You would like to be a better earner. You'd like to earn more income, whatever it might be. This is a skill set that you can apply to anything in your life, which is why I love to coach around weight loss. Like you all come in thinking it's about your relationship to gravity, but actually, when you're in the arena of weight loss, this is about you learning how to live an intentional life where you learn to self actualize, which means you learn how to create what you want in your life and you know how to work with your brain, how to work with your self talk, how to work with implementing sustainable changes in your action to steer yourself from a life of reactivity and fatalism, like the world just happens to me, right? And I'm just a pawn, to like, I make things happen. I know how to create any change in my life that I'd like to create. So let's go back to keeping your promises and your follow through, doing what you said you were going to do. It's earned through the best way to do it is to litigate this with yourself through small everyday matters, like food planning is one, or listing your top 3 things that you are going to prioritize today, and then really focusing on getting those things done, making like gamifying it with yourself and making it, the thing that you are really working on. I want to get better and better at doing the things that I said I was going to do, and also constraining what I said I was going to do to the things that I'm able to get done that don't stress me out or overwhelm me. So, the outcomes of these small things that you set out for yourself to do, maybe planning every day, maybe taking a walk, keeping to 3 overeats per week, whatever the number is for you, these things become the foundation upon which your character and reputation with yourself is built. So, your coach homework this week is to identify 1 to 3 things that you will work on and focus on to follow through, create a better follow through rate of return on doing what you said you were going to do. I may not, like I said, take the hardest thing that you have a problem with and instead break that hard thing down into little small things first so that you have a good chance of success. We always want to set ourselves up for success by starting small and then using the momentum of those small changes, those small wins to create a sense of like I'm moving forward, right? I have momentum. Momentum is such a great and underutilized feeling to help you take on more and more as you go. So, if you lack the ability to keep your word, then the remedy for that, if you have this sense that like I let myself down, I break my promises to myself, I always give myself an excuse. The remedy for that is to get into action to reverse that trend. There is no amount of thinking about how you don't do what you said you were going to do that will reverse that trend. No, there's no amount of noting it on your planner. There's no amount of journaling about it. There's no amount of talking about it or looking at your data that will change the results that you're getting. So we can't think our way out of our reputation with ourselves. you know, because it's about action. This is all action line coaching. So much of weight loss coaching, like I can't just coach you on your mindset. I can't just coach you about what to think. I would never lie to somebody and say, if you just think better thoughts about how you have your habits around food and your follow through, you'll lose weight. It's bullshit. Now, coaching around mindset and how you self talk will make that whole process of change feel a hell of a lot better. Like I said, you won't be dragging yourself through the mud. And we should do that. That is definitely a tool in your pocket. But the clincher to actually getting results that stick results in your commitment to taking different actions and, setting yourself up in the ask in easy ways, like I said. So, thinking about it, writing about it, talking about it, looking at the numbers will increase your awareness of the problem, but it does nothing to change your follow through and your reputation. Keeping your word with yourself is a habit like anything else, like brushing your teeth. That can be strengthened or weakened depending on if you're reinforcing whatever outcome by following through with your intended actions or reinforcing the negative outcome of breaking your promises to yourself by rationalizing or excusing, which in itself can be a dopamine hit. Think about it. When you've ever got on the highway and, someone cuts you off or tries to turn into your lane and you're there because they don't look. Remember how good it feels to say, oh my God, people are idiots. Look at this. Look at the way they drive. It's that righteous indignation of telling yourself, of confirming a story that you've already told yourself a million times is true. People are reckless on the road. People don't pay attention. People are bad drivers. Everyone's trying to kill me on the road. Right? You've just given yourself a dopamine hit. You've just rewarded that behavior of noticing and focusing on what you don't want to happen. Think about it. When you do this with yourself, like, oh, I knew I was going to overeat. I can't ever not overeat pizza. I just don't think I'm ever going to be able to do this. Dopamine hit. You're reinforcing that negative story and that negative outcome with telling and reinforcing that story. You're feeding that animal, right? With your negative attention of it. What we want to do is we want to starve that habit of reinforcing, not following through. So this means you're going to have a disciplined mindset, and you're going to have to, instead of noticing how you let yourself down, you're going to have to be relentless in noticing how you show up for yourself. how your plan is now more doable each day, how you never ask yourself to do more in a day than you have time to do, how you never ask yourself to do a large walk, 1 hour walk at the end of your most exhausting day, which is setting yourself up for letting yourself down and telling that hard feeling story about how you let yourself down. Like, I do not anymore ever ask myself to do anything that is beyond my capacity because I know myself so well. And part of knowing myself so well is because I have really looked at when I don't follow through. And what I've discovered, and I think what many of you will discover too, when you really take a compassionate, curious look at your lack of follow through, it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you don't want to, but it's because you are asking yourself to perform, usually without a greater picture of the environment, which means literal environment, the the emotional environment, the nervous system environment in which you expect yourself to perform. It's kind of like asking a goldfish to hike up a mountain when you're asking yourself to do that long walk after your most exhausting professional day of the week. Why do we do this? Well, sometimes we plan like this because we think that number one, it feels good to just say, here I am with these really good perfectionistic intentions. Like, I have the best intentions of myself. I know what to do. It kind of feels good, right? I really want you to have this practical idea of like, does this work for the human, the future self me, who's going to meet the moment and be expected to pull the trigger on these things? You know, like I had a client I was coaching who, is really tired of herself, like not doing the movement and exercises that she has been very aware that she's not doing. And the environment in which she's asking herself to do her exercises really makes her feel not great about being in that space for many reasons. And it's just something that she needs, I coached her around this. She just needs to stop asking herself to do that. And instead, let's just make the environment what feels into a place that feels good to do those things. Sometimes the work is just letting go of the performance, the perceived performance that you think you need to do, and just get to work on the environment. Clean up the environment, change the circumstance, get into action, make it happen. Do that first. Let that count toward eventually being able to, go into that room and do your movement. You've got to set it up right first. We are humans that are multifactorial. We have so many different inputs. We're sensory, like all of our senses are going, our nervous system is going, our stress hormones are going, our energy resources are changing all the time. All of these things are changing all of the time. And if you just ask yourself to perform without considering the multifactorial environment in which we ask ourselves to perform, I think we have a much better chance at following through and keeping our promises to yourself. Okay. So, this idea of like, what are you reinforcing in your habit of maybe not following through on certain things in your life? Really look at that and then just say, like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. It's kind of like, the dog trainers. They're like, there's a dog owner that says, well, I don't understand why my dog keeps jumping on me, on everybody when they walk in the door. It's such a bad habit. My dog is just not doing what I want her to do. But then when the dog trainer points out, when you come in the door, you're fussing at the dog and encouraging, oh, good girl, hi, and we kind of like will even like tap our legs, which encourages the dog to jump. So if you want a calm dog, when anybody walks in the door, you have to be calm. and not reinforce the jumping and the barking and all of that, right? What are we reinforcing with our attention of it? So, a shift in the focus to reinforcing how can I feel great about following through with what I said I would do? And how can I reinforce that with myself? Uh, Nobody wants to feel like we are thrown off course by the mildest turn in the road, the smallest thing that comes up. But the truth is, this is life, especially 21st century life. It is nothing but constant turns in the road. When you make your plan, I want you to expect that the whole thing is going to be farkakte. I think that's a Yiddish word that means all fucked up. I don't know where I heard it from. Anyway, it's in my brain. Like, that's what's going to happen. There is, in no way is your idea of how you're planning the day, should you ever expect that it's going to really look like what you think it might. It's only a guess. The most interesting part isn't that we be able to do it exactly as we expected, not knowing what the day holds for us, but that we see ourselves in the moment when things get all fakapted, right? All fucked up, that we see ourselves as a person who can hold out and find the win and find the follow through and keep her reputation with herself, even if in the execution of what she chooses to do doesn't look exactly like what we said. The main thing that we want to keep from it is that you see yourself as someone who follows through. And that's keeping the spirit and the letter of this idea of earning a good reputation with ourselves. Okay. So, developing the habit of follow through and keeping your promises hinges on your ability to, number one, constrain your promises, those intentions, to doable actions given those multifactorial, practical things and those time constraints and the resources that you have coming into it. When you do this, you give yourself the best shot at being able to have a chance of following through more often. Number two, you need to be able to find creative ways to follow through without thinking that your actions need to be perfect. Pivoting, being flexible, being adaptable, and being creative in the moment allow you to take action in imperfect ways. And we're just going to expect that. Like an example is you don't have enough time to get in that 1 hour walk you planned. So you pivot and you choose to walk 20 minutes anyway. And your ability to do that, given the day you had and how you were later in getting to your walk than you expected, feels even better than had the day gone perfectly and you exactly had the hour that you had. Make it a badge of honor to find a way to follow through. Also, see yourself in the moment that you have that resistance to following through, that moment of like, oh, I don't want to, that moment of resistance, that in the moment urge that's directly in the way of you saying what you said you were going to do, right? Knowing you've already had your 3 overeats and somebody brings your favorite dessert to the office and you really want it. See yourself in that moment as a superhero who finds a way to not only overcome that resistance, but find a win. So maybe you take that dessert home and you have it tomorrow because you want to keep that reputation with yourself and find a way to have what you want to eat in a way that feels like it's respectful of your goals, where you don't have to give weight loss that week to feel like you can have a dessert if you want one. Okay. And see yourself as that superhero who figures out the solution that none of us can figure out, right? Or the solution that's not obvious. You know, I have a friend who is a CFO, and he's been a CEO too of big name corporations that we all know. And I pick his brain sometimes and I ask him like, what do you do all day as a CEO? Because the thought of it is like really interesting, right? He's not really in the day-to-day performance of the company. So I was like really curious about what he does. And he said, all I do, Heather, is solve problems all day, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And I thought, oh wow, that's what a CEO does. He's a professional problem solver. When you can embrace problem solving as part of who you are in your life and as a part of meeting your goals, I'm the CEO of my weight loss, then following ways to follow through just becomes part of what you're really good at. When you start to see yourself as being really good at finding solutions to keep moving forward with your desired habits, this is how you become not only the CEO of your weight loss, but the CEO of your life. And like I said before, this habit of problem solving and finding a way to follow through and keep a great reputation with yourself is transferable to any area of your life. So, a lot of my clients have this impression of their inability to keep their promises. This is like who they see themselves as. It's a damaging belief system. And although it feels probably very true if this is you to think that, because your brain gives you all kinds of evidence. Well, remember, you had this happened in the past and you let yourself down here and you had a weight gain over here. The only reason why your brain is giving you that is because you're asking it to prove a belief that you have told yourself is true. But that's just the algorithm playing out. The brain is just giving you what you asked it to do, which is tell me how I have a bad reputation with myself. Tell me how I have an inability to keep promises. You see where that focus is? It's on the negative. We never want to focus too much on the negative. We want to notice it, of course. We don't want to let that be the driving focus. The shift has to be show me how I am actually somebody who can get really good at keeping my promises, and let your brain get to work collecting evidence that that is true, and let yourself become obsessed with that. Play the game. I gave you that homework. This is how you have that positive focus of I'm getting better at following through and in my reputation with myself through these ways. I did that this week with my clients through the launch of the follow through planner. I was a little inconsistent with my planning myself. So I went in my accountability channel in Slack with my clients and I just said, hey, I'm going to post here every day. This is how I'm going to prove to myself I can get right back to the habit of everyday planning. I don't focus too much on why I didn't do it. I know why I didn't do it. I had competing things that conspired to kind of uh, take me off my habit of planning every day. But all I have to do is just get right back to it. Just like, you have times at the gym and then you have times that you don't go to the gym. You just get right back to the gym and don't make it a big deal. Just notice how that is action focused. If you stay in the thought about what's happened, all you do is confirm the negative. So take the alternative action. Hey, it's Heather. Let's pause here for a second because I want to tell you something important. I know you don't need more willpower. You need a better system. That's why I created the Follow Through Planner. It's a digital planner designed for women like you who are ready to get out of all or nothing mindset, diet mentality, and start making real sustainable progress through the work on habit change. Inside the Follow Through Digital Planner, you'll find the tools that I use with my coaching clients to help you plan your week, your days, and stay focused on what matters and really get in practice actually following through without the guilt or burnout. If you're curious about what's inside the Follow Through Planner, visit hbeardsley.com/planner. That's HBEARD SLEY.com/planner to learn more. And if you sign up to be a VIP subscriber, you get 15% off. Being someone who keeps her promises and follows through requires you to be able to successfully practice telling yourself no over and over again. I'm going to say that again. Being someone who keeps her promises and improves her reputation with herself means that you are willing and you commit to being able to successfully practice telling yourself no over and over and over again. Think about parenting. If you want to enforce rules with your kids, you have to be willing to say no to your kids a million times. And it's pretty obvious with a parent, like if you give in and you only say no part of the time, then enforcing those rules that you've been inconsistent with is going to be really hard with their behavior because they know that you change your mind. So the more consistent you can be telling yourself no on what is not negotiable anymore is really important. So defining what those are, like what, for example, it could be I will maybe not do 3 strength training workouts per week. It depends on how I recover, but I always do 2. Or if I, like last week because of launch, I also only had 1 strength training practice. And I created a rule for myself, which is once in a while, a week like that happens and I'm okay with it, but I don't let it go to 2 weeks of just once a week strength training. I get right back to a minimum of 2 up to 3 per week. And that is something that I just don't allow myself to negotiate. A good response to that hard moment when your brain might want to, push against that is I've already decided on this issue. It's not up for negotiation. Those are really powerful replies, and I encourage you to use them. So when you start saying, no, I'm going to figure out in this moment how to keep my promise to myself, and you overcome that moment of high resistance by taking some kind of desired action anyway, you practice the skill of not only telling yourself no, but the skill of delayed gratification. And in that moment, you earn a better reputation with yourself as a promise keeper. When you see yourself as like, nope, I'm going in the gym, I'm going to do my workout, and it's going to be 2 this week. When I do that this week, I'm going to see myself as a promise keeper. So self-identify with that, and you will start changing your self-concept from somebody who has a bad reputation with herself in terms of following through and somebody who has a better reputation with herself. Like she's changed, and you're proving it to yourself every time you redirect your actions and find a way to follow through. So it's this skill that's going to help you lose all the weight you want to lose and keep it off in maintenance. Saying no to yourself and practicing delayed gratification as a badge of honor. So we know that some alternative will always sound better in the moment than what you plan to do. And even with the best plans, your brain will, and you can expect it to, have a fit wanting to just do what it wants. That, like the old habit of letting yourself down. Let it have a fit and follow through anyway. You can take action that isn't aligned with how you feel. So you ever stand in line with somebody or talk to somebody and they're making you really angry and you want to say something, but you don't say it? That is taking action that is outside and not aligned with how you feel. You are able to do that because you have this manager part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex that can delay impulse. You have impulse control. You can delay your gratification. You don't have to act it out. This is what adults' brains are able to do that children's brains can't. So I'd love to hear any discussion, thoughts, reactions, or takeaways that you have on this topic. Visit me on Instagram at Thrive in Midlife on the reel for this episode and let me know about improving the reputation you have with yourself, the art of follow through, seeing yourself as somebody who does what she says she was going to do. And we'll keep the conversation going over there. I hope it's been helpful. Stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and become a VIP subscriber. You'll learn how to work with me. You'll get 2 free gifts, access to exclusive VIP content, and get a discount on the digital follow-through planner.